Hey all, so a quick one here. Haven't made many war videos lately because we've had an incredibly long off season, and honestly, I just haven't joined a ton of them. In part because when war season is on, um, it takes up quite a bit of my time as an officer, and I was enjoying that part of the break. It definitely feels like it's been too long, as I'm sure many of you agree, because war is one of my favorite parts of the game, so I'm looking forward to it coming back, but that's why there hasn't been a whole lot for me on that front. However, one of the fights that I've been wanting to take for a few off seasons now was I wanted to run into a Terrax boss that was not running Liquid Courage, so he didn't just self implode, um, and be able to take him down from 100% to 0, or at least try to, with my Psylocke. And I finally got the chance, and we're going to go over real quickly why that works. So, as many know, Psylocke is all about getting your opponent down to 0 power and then keeping them there. And while she keeps them there, you can see that already at SIG 40, she's reducing their defensive ability accuracy by over 50%. I believe this is reducing how many adaptive buffs I have to deal with, and this could be even nicer with the Penny Parker synergy. I'm hoping to pick that up eventually because that reduces it by another 50%, which should mean that when she has an opponent at 0, she's completely turning off their defensive abilities. In addition, you get some extra critical damage rating on top of the 1400 she gets just as part of her base kit as an incentive to keep their power low. So often with Psylocke, the trick is that you have to get your opponent over a bar of power before they will gain any psi charges, and then you have to get them back down to 0 so that they won't gain any more now that you have a psi charge. Terrax is a particularly nice matchup for her because once he's duped, he starts with a bar of power, so you start with a psi charge, and then he oh so helpfully drains himself to 0, which means that as long as he doesn't hit you, he's locked for the rest of the fight. Now, she still can have a bit of a damage problem, but that's why bringing Apocalypse along helps. Now, if I had been able to make her a horseman, then this fight would have been a lot simpler and I probably would have approached it a little differently, because I would have had 50% extra attack and even more critical damage rating, as you can see. However, since that is not always feasible to bring a non-meta champ like Psylocke, Apocalypse, who is legitimately great, and someone to allow Apocalypse to quickly rank, like say Cable, all on the same team, I mean, you could design a war offense around that, but odds are it's going to hurt you elsewhere. So I kind of wanted to just test it with the synergy. And as you can see there, the synergy gives all of her basic hits a chance to give her another side charge. That's really important because she can then detonate them and do about 2,000 damage per side charge with a heavy. As you will see in this video, the heavy itself also counts as a basic attack, and so it can give you a side charge itself. Now, there are still some challenges to this fight, so let's get into the actual thing and see how this works out. Now, while my Psylocke is not boosted and is not running any of the recoil tree masteries, I do have to admit that somebody else did place the guidance boost on the boss, and so that is helping. 15% attack is 15% attack. The other problem with this fight that you can see immediately is that Psylocke takes a ton of block damage if you let her. I think I actually checked, and she has negative perfect block chance. She's like the only champion in the game, at least that I know of, who, if you give her extra perfect block chance, will still not be able to perfect block. But you can see how we're gaining all of these side charges just from landing combos. We'd pick up one every 5 hits regardless. That's part of her base kit, but we're getting a lot more than that because of that synergy with Apocalypse. And we're also, of course, hitting harder, allowing us to cut through those resistances. Now, I did throw that L2, and I think I will again, in part because I was trying to see how much does it crit, because if it reliably crits, then you have the option in season of potentially using a power back boost and basically using her as a mutant special damage battery and chaining special twos. Because as you saw there, it also consumes a psi charge to inflict that power lock and then give you back a full bar of power. So if you combine the fact that she kind of has built-in power reserve on her special 2 with a power back boost, you have really good odds of just chaining specials. And I do think that that's an option, especially if you can make her a horseman and give her some extra attack. But since this was not boosted, I pretty quickly decided, especially because I noticed that power lock feeding willpower, that I was going to stick to the L1 because that itself has 5 hits and will allow us to build psi charges instead of spending them. And we're going to avoid the L3 at all costs because it consumes all of our psi charges. It does inflict a power lock, so you can get them back pretty quickly, but it's just not worth it. The damage in it is built off of power burning the opponent, and so it's not super helpful if the opponent's already at no power. Now, I didn't land that heavy counter perfectly, and as you can see, it was not enough to finish him off. But I didn't come into this doing the math that I would if I were taking this in season, where in season I would know exactly how many charges I needed to take off a certain percentage of his health, and so I would have calculated how many I needed to finish this fight in a single heavy. I didn't do that, so I took some risks, but as you saw there, the heavy itself procced that chance to get a new psi charge on a basic hit because heavy attacks are basic hits, and so I didn't lose the passive power lock. The icon for it went away, but, sometimes icons are buggy. Now, we are at very low health here. I've done quite a few intercepts in this fight, and I've baited out heavies both by blocking and not. Not wherever possible because I knew I was going to need to save some health for this right here at the end. There he goes down. Pretty clean win, plenty of time left, and honestly, if I had come into this with a regen boost for that early block damage and a health boost so that she had more to give, maybe a champion boost, if I had been able to make her a horseman, any of those things, this would have been that much easier. I still don't know that she's necessarily the best option for this because, Cable exists. There are other really good Terrax boss counter options. Claire exists. Both of those can heal. And if you get hit even once with Psylocke, then Terrax is going to gain a bunch of power from consuming that psi charge, and you're going to have to survive a full rock field to get him back down to 0 so that you can continue. So there are some big risks in this. However, it actually went better than I thought it would. I had more room with a rank 2 Psylocke than I expected, and I'm considering taking her to rank 3, honestly. I have always liked the character. For a long time, I don't think she was very competitive, but you see how much of an impact this Apocalypse synergy made, and she also has an updated synergy with Bishop that allows her to inflict a petrify that is paused during her special attacks under certain conditions, and so that actually gives her an answer to passive power gain, and she could be a good option to someone like Hyperion or Mordo if you set it up right, and not just to champions that don't have passive power gain, because that's always been one of her principal weaknesses. Now she has a way around that. Additionally, this new synergy with Penny, like I said, is going to allow her to get at SIG 40 to 101% defensive ability accuracy reduction. If your Psylocke is somehow SIG 200, you can take that all the way up to 125% and even get around people with slightly boosted defensive ability accuracy, which I think is really interesting. I don't know. I don't know that I'll take her up next, but I am pretty happy with my top mutants, so I'm seriously considering it. And I don't know that I would send this in season for all of the reasons that I outlined, but I'm really glad I got to try this. and I think it shows just how strong she's gotten over time as some additional synergies and reworks have come into the game and as the meta has shifted. I personally found this fight really interesting. I hope you guys did. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did this blow any of your minds? Did you think that Psylocke was completely useless? Do you use her? Are any of you big fans? Would you like to see more? Let me know. Until next time, take care.